What is going on, wrestling fans? It is I, Steve Fall, and boy, oh boy, do I have a treat for you. Yesterday, I talked to Wolfpack Sting, Steve Borden, but today we're talking to Surfer Sting, or USA Sting. It's Garrett Borden. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. This has just been a wild last few days, but a good wild last few days. Just getting to experience my dad's retirement was just the coolest thing in the world.
Yes, yes. And if we didn't say it off the top, you are Sting's son. And, with life being like it is, it's a crazy world. But your world this
Mhm.
past week, like you just mentioned, has been probably upside down and inside out because last week was your father's last match in professional wrestling, and you were there as Surfer Sting. Now, before we get to Surfer Sting and the choice on that, Garn, because I love it so much, what was the atmosphere like backstage at Revolution? Because it's your dad's last dance, but everyone else is there probably praising you, your father, your family, everything. What's the atmosphere like?
It was good. I mean, obviously, my dad kind of wanted his space. He didn't say he wanted his space, but we just knew, like, all right, this is his last match. So, we were Steven and I were definitely nervous. We were really excited, but we were like, we cannot mess this up. Absolutely not. We wanted to go all in and just make sure it was as perfect as possible. Even though it was such a small part of the match, we still were like, it just has to be perfect. And my dad had this image in his head. He kept talking about how he just wanted it to be. He didn't tell us, don't, you better make it perfect. But he said, I have this vision of kind of what I want it to be, and I want people to really just be wowed by it. And so Steven and I knew that we just had to do whatever we could possible to make that happen. And obviously my dad's part, that was 99.9% of it. And it was totally awesome. All the crazy stuff that he does. And I think once he showed up, everybody was like, oh, okay, Sting. Yeah, that's what we care about now. It was like a cool little flashback with us, but yeah, just absolutely wild the whole day.
Now, you're talking about the intro too, because when I was in the crowd, I'm there. I'm media. I'm there. I'm enjoying the festivities, interviews and press conferences. And then it's time for the main event. It's time for your dad's last match. And I look up and there's that screen playing this beautiful video package of him inside of a theater saying it's showtime for the last time.
Mm.
But then Surfer Sting walked out and my mind melted for a brief moment because I'm like, damn, like Surfer Sting. He's not gonna be Crow Sting. He's gonna be Surfer Sting. Then Wolfpack Sting walked out. And then my brain finally stopped melting for a minute and realized, oh, wait a minute. This is like a tip of the hat. Not realizing it was his sons at first. But
Uh-huh.
you're Surfer Sting. Was there a fight between you and your brother Steve about, hey, I want to be Wolfpack. I want to be Surfer. I want to be Crow. Like, what was the atmosphere like of the brothers biting into going, I want to be this one?
Yeah, thankfully, my brother and I have gotten in like a total of 3 fights in our whole life. We
Who
really
won?
are just best friends. And so we're just always there for each other. We get along and everything. It's like the rarest brother relationship. Like we're just bros. Sounds funny to say that. But as far as who gets to play who, there really was never any fight or anything like that. I remember I sent a picture of myself. It was like a post-workout pic to my dad. Hey, here's some progress, maybe 7 years ago, and I think he put it side by side, or maybe I put it side by side with one of his old pictures in like a similar pose. And he just said, "You look just like Surfer Sting." Oh my goodness, it's like a flashback. And then Steven obviously had long hair for a few years, a couple of years ago, and he looked just like Wolfpack era Crow, or 90s era Crow Sting. And so I think we just naturally knew, all right, Garrett's going to be Surfer, Steven's going to be Crow. There wasn't any sort of debate on it. And plus, I was a little excited to bleach my hair. I've always wanted an excuse to do it, and finally I got one. So
Nice, nice. Yeah. I imagine if I suddenly like dye my beard red, my wife might be like, what are you doing? I'm like, it's for wrestling, it's for
for a
Sting,
good cause.
it's for a good cause. I gotta dye it red, honey. Please don't yell at me. That's awesome though, because yeah, it's gotta be so much fun being out there. And of course, what does your father say to you right before you walk out? Because again, this isn't your usual atmosphere for you personally. Yeah, your father's a wrestler, but it's not like you're walking out every single time with him. We
Yeah.
haven't seen this before. And so you walk out, Surfer Sting, your brother walks out, and there's your dad too. So it's not just you and your dad, your brother's there as well. Like, this has got to be an experience. But what does your dad say to you right before you walk out?
I can't recall specific things that he said other than it was like right before we went out. I remember obviously my brother and I, we were pretty nervous, pretty big weight to carry there, but he just looked at us before we walked out and it was just like, I love you guys. You know, we just had a little moment like that and you guys got this. Let's just have some fun. And it was a really cool moment. And I was still nervous, but nerves went from like a 10 to an 8 maybe after that. It's like, man, this is going to work. It's going to be great. So, yeah, it was a good
Yeah.
moment.
Yeah, 100%. Because again, when you walked out, I think everyone did think your father was you. So we're all like, "What? What's
Yeah.
happening? He's not gonna be," because no one would have been upset either way. It wouldn't have been like, "Oh, I wanted Crow. I wanted this version. I wanted Joker." Like, no, we got
Yeah.
you, your brother. It was great to see generation. I talked to your brother about this too, and he mentioned that even I think Darby Allin was the one to suggest that your brother not be Crow Sting because technically your father really is already Crow Sting. Like
Yeah.
you can't have two Crow Stings. So like, was there ever an option? Because the only option I can think of is Joker Sting, and
Yeah.
you could have been Joker Sting.
Yeah. I don't, so Joker Sting was on the table. Like that was an option because that's just another iteration of Sting, but that was just for Steven. It was kind of a toss up.
Mm,
And Steven just in his heart was like, I just feel I really want to just play a Wolfpack. I think the red and black, that would just be so cool. But we had to have Surfer Sting in there. So having
yeah.
3 different Crow-esque Stings might have been a little weird, but I think the Surfer ended up being pretty cool. A huge flashback.
Yeah, 100%. And maybe you could have dressed as RoboCop too, I guess,
Yeah.
because your father's pretty famous for having a best friend, RoboCop, save him many, many, many years ago in a cage. So maybe I did see a
Yeah.
fan. I know he wasn't on camera once. I don't think there was a fan dressed as RoboCop, but like not in a
Oh, no
not
way.
in like a plastic outfit. It was more of just like mesh. Like, damn,
Yeah.
that guy's there for like 5 hours dressed as RoboCop, and this makeup is melting off his face because it got hot in there. But still,
That's awesome.
that was so cool to see. And then you get in the ring too. You don't just walk down the aisle. You did some stinger splashes, and you were nailing those. You know, I talked
Thank
to your
you.
brother already about this, and I thought he was going to fly over the top rope the way he was
Same,
jumping.
yeah.
We were nervous. The way he came down like chest first and his legs followed. I'm like, hopefully he's okay. He did it twice. But you're hitting these splashes.
Yeah.
How did you learn? Like, when did this practice come into place? Are you as a child stinger splashing pillows, or is this a brand new? I need to learn this, and who taught you?
Yeah, so it was the night before my brother and I had practiced our first stinger splashes. We just played football, ran track. We were just in sports growing up, and that was all we did. We never had real access to a ring or anything like that, so we didn't have any practice. And I think a lot of people just assume like, yeah, you just probably had one at your house. Like, no, we didn't.
We don't have.
So it was fun. I remember when we only knew we were going to be doing splash. Well, we didn't even know we were going to be doing splashes until we got to Greensboro.
Oh, wow.
We knew that we might be doing something physical, but that was about it. And that's kind of how wrestling goes. You just figure out stuff like day of or day before, almost like cramming for a test. You know, you just get all the little details in at last second, and then you can memorize it for a little bit. But as far as getting our stinger splashes in, yeah, it was the night before. They did have a ring at the hotel, thankfully, so we got a little bit of practice, but it was literally like 15 minutes of physical. Okay, let's get some splash reps in. And I told this to a couple people, but just kind of a funny story is when I think it was my second or third splash, my dad said, "Hey, you're jumping off of one leg. Why don't you jump off of 2 legs?" So I was like, okay, cool. And we were overthinking everything to the max. You think, oh, I just have to jump into someone. It's not that hard. But I actually, I decided to go off of 2 legs, and I jumped. I jumped over the turnbuckle, over the rope, did like a little flip thing. I was seeing stars after. Thankfully, I didn't hit my head or anything. It was just like, whoa, what even happened? And there was probably 8 people in there watching, and it was really embarrassing. They're like, whoa, are you okay? And so I was freaking out, just going, I better not do this live. This would be the worst thing in the world if I just totally just whiffed this stinger splash. So I think going into the match, I was going, I'm going to play the first one a little bit safe, not go too crazy. I'll go a little bit higher on the second one, but I did not want to jump over because I can't even imagine that just like the one thing that we did messing that up would have been terrible. So
Yeah. And that's why when you did your singer splashes, I was like, oh, very nice, very nice.
yeah,
And then I was like, very nice, because obviously you remember what happened to you the day before.
yeah,
And then your brother comes flying. I'm like, because again, like I described it earlier, he came in chest first, then legs behind him, where I
almost
thought he
legs
was about to
above him.
snap. Like he was flying,
Yeah,
and you hit them. You hit them as one
yeah,
should. And your brother didn't do it wrong either. There's no wrong way to do a splash, but you were. I felt like gingerly hitting them, and they were like, "Damn, that's good. That's
yeah,
good shit right there." And then your brother comes in. I'm like, "Oh my god,
whoa,
he's gonna fly over the top rope." Like, like
yeah,
he saw his brother do it, and he's like, "I'm gonna top my brother by flying over the top
yeah.
rope."
He knew
Wow.
the strategy beforehand because I probably said it like 10 times, like, okay, I'm just gonna go like halfway, maybe. I'm just not gonna do anything crazy. I just want to land it. And he just was saying, oh yeah, cool. I think I'm just gonna go all out. and
Oh,
so and that's exactly what he did. He's just like, I can't half do it halfway. So yeah, he definitely did and got a ton of air. It was awesome.
yeah, it was great. What a visual too. The pictures that I've seen
Yeah.
so far. There's a picture of you standing in the front, and then your dad's in the middle, and your brother is behind you. And it's just like the generations
Oh
of
yeah.
the Sting face paint, the generations, of course, you and your dad and your brother. Like this this moment is something completely different than just a normal wrestling match with your family involved, 'cause we've seen that before. Like,
Yeah.
I was at the press conference after the event at Revolution, and I asked your father a simple question. Was it hard for you to get out of that ring when it's over? Because once you step out, this moment of you dressing up as Surfer Sting, your brother dresses Wolfpack Sting, your father's last match, like, that's over. It's gone. Like, it's like being at a wedding. Like, once you leave, it's over. Like, this is such a celebration of life and work and family and friends. Like, how did you feel hugging your father and your brother in the ring together, and 16,000 people are going crazy for you? But eventually, this beautiful moment has to end. Like, what was that
Yeah.
experience like, stepping out and realizing, like, I gotta go wash this face paint off and get some clothes on?
Yeah, I was telling myself going into the weekend, just soak it all in, enjoy every moment, make everything last. Don't waste any time because it will be over. And that was the saddest thought to me. It was all so bittersweet. And just walking up to the ring after the match, after it went off air, I don't think that we got any time on air, but we were walking out, and that moment that we had in the ring, just me, Steve, and Dad hugging it out was just one of the greatest moments ever. And it was cool. I couldn't stop smiling, I just didn't want it to end. And I think he didn't want it to end either because in a way, in that moment, it was so beautiful, so perfect. And all the fans just giving him praise. It was just great. And he definitely soaked it all in too, made sure to visit with everybody, and everybody got to have that one-on-one time with him. So I couldn't have thought of a more perfect day and a more perfect end to it. I really did feel like I soaked it in too, thankfully.
Yes, even like I said, like when I was watching that video play of your father and it's showtime last time you guys walk, I'm watching the video and I'm just thinking, I'm not numb to wrestling because I've covered it so long, but you're like,
Mhm.
you expect certain things out of wrestling. And then when you feel teary eyed watching a video, you're like, damn it, they got me again, those
Yeah.
bastards. And then suddenly you are walking out like I'm feeling emotional, but obviously you and your father and your brother and your family's backstage too, not just three of you, a bunch of you. I've seen the
Mhm.
pictures, and it's got to feel great. Like it's got to
Yeah.
feel great. But when it's over, what's going on backstage? What are you guys doing? Because I've seen the photos of everyone walking around hugging, and your father's, who I feel like is never on social media, is just popping off
Yeah.
videos, popping off pictures. He's all over that place like a teenage girl just got his phone for Christmas. So, like,
Yeah.
what's that like backstage? Because after it's done, are people coming up to you and be like, "Hey, kid, listen, I know you haven't been doing this wrestling thing this much, but I think you get a future in this." Like, is there a future for you in this? Do you want there to be a future in this?
Yep, fair question. The answer that I've been giving isn't like a nope, never gonna happen, never 0% chance, because that was the answer up until maybe 4 years ago or so, even probably like 2 years ago. I never even considered it. Actually, no. it was less. It's more of like it's been a thought when I go to the AEW shows because I've been going to more the last few years. And when I'm there and I see it, it's like, whoa, this is really cool. This maybe I could do this, but I've never actually thought about. I've never talked to anybody or anything like that. No promotions about doing wrestling. It's just I think everybody probably feels that when you're there. It's like this would be so cool to do, and then actually doing it after the weekend. I think you definitely think about it more. Where it could be really cool to do it, but again, I'm not talking to anybody. I'm not training for it because I would need a lot of training because I just played football and I lift weights. There's a big difference between that and being a professional wrestler, like some of the guys that we see at AEW, especially. I mean, just watching them, I was watching them before I went out, and I'm going, it made me even more nervous because, Will Ospreay, Taka just doing all the craziest moves ever, and I'm watching that going, I have to go after this. Oh man!
Yeah.
And even though I've the smallest part, it still was nerve wracking. So all that to say, it's gonna take a lot of time and a lot of practice, and I don't know if I'm wanting to do that. I guess that's the long answer, but it's not a yes, it's not a no. So
Yeah, no. I think in any sport, if your father or mother is an athlete, they imagine that, well, the gene's got to be in the kids. So,
yeah,
and everyone, think of a Mount Rushmore professional wrestling, Sting's name is up there. So when you think of he's got kids, boys who are
yeah,
in good shape, like, oh, okay. Like, obviously, people put a thought in their brain thinking, well, if he can do it, they can do it. But what, we'll have to wait and see. But,
yeah,
maybe someday we'll have little stingers out there and about you and your brother. But I've seen it. The comments of they want the Stinger brothers versus the Young Bucks at some point in time
yeah.
in the future. And that's what the internet's saying. So, sometimes you got to give the internet what they want. Just saying that, Garrett.
Yeah, no, I've seen a few comments too. It is interesting, and it's definitely a confidence booster as far as like, wow, I honestly was expecting to see more of like these guys suck. Like, what are they doing? They're not even wrestlers. Why are they in the ring? I'm sure that there are those people out there because I was even thinking that myself. But it has been just overwhelming to see so many positive comments on that. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, and what's more unbelievable is watching Darby Allin jump off a ladder through some glass
Yeah.
on some chairs, and then your father does the same thing. And what I've been seeing online a lot lately is the people who are nervous for Darby Allin being like, I don't
Hmm.
think he can get back up. Like, I don't think he's going to be able to stand. And
Yeah.
and obviously, I talked to your brother about this too. Is as soon as your part was done, you went backstage and you're watching this match. So you see Darby go through the glass. Obviously, you see your father go through the glass, but people are not sure Darby's gonna be able to get back up. Is there any discussion? Anyone back to this? Be like, listen, I know we only practice splashes, but we might need you to go out there and stall for some time because Darby's just bleeding out on the floor right now.
Ooh, so no, thankfully, that would have
Oh,
been really bad if they came up to us just mid-match. Go out there, just do something. Or even practicing, that would have made it more intense for sure. But thankfully, I know that they did have a alternate ending, which they've talked
yeah,
about on
yeah.
Twitter. There was a separate plan, but both Steven and I were not involved in that plan to
Okay,
do anything. They just had a different path. So,
all right.
but watching him before the match started, when we were still practicing, we were in the ring. Darby he had the ladder in the ring and was just two or three rungs from the top and just looking down at the glass, and I'm going, no, he's not going to do that. There's no way. And because I didn't know he was going to do that. And everybody was looking up at him going, no, don't do this. And he's like, no, it'll be fine. I'll be fine. And he's so crazy. Just wild.
Yes, a little crazy, but hey, man, I loved Mick Foley Mankind when I was a child, and I wanted to jump out of trees and land on my back like he did off of a Hell in a Cell. So there's probably kids out there going, well, if he can do it, I can do this. But that's why we do have those videos that say, do not try us at home and get a proper
Don't try it
trainer
at
if
home. Yeah.
you're gonna go out there and do this stuff. What's your relationship like with Darby Allin? Because your father in WCW, you might have been a little younger at the time, and then of course the WWE run, which wasn't very long at all, TNA. And then here we are in AEW. So
Mhm.
you're obviously old enough now. And what's your relationship like with Darby? Is there a relationship, or you're just like, hey, that's my dad's coworker?
Yeah, for a while, I didn't meet him too much. I probably saw him 5 times in total during my dad's run at AEW.
Okay.
Sometimes, like, he wasn't there, when I would go. I've been to a decent amount of AEW shows, but, it wasn't until the last m little bit, really, the last few months that we've had more run-in with each other, and I've gotten to know him a little bit. And he's great, and the respect that he has for my dad, the respect that my dad has for Darby and their friendship and bond is so cool. And with Charles there too, just they're like the three amigos, and I'm thankful to have been able to experience a little bit of that, just seeing them interact and engage, because they're all more on the introverted side. It's not like they're total introverts, but seeing them kind of like branch out and just be like laugh and joke around together, and getting to see that was really cool. So I think you know Darby, he really is just awesome. Yeah, I guess that's all I'll say about that. Like,
Yeah.
he's so cool.
He seems like a pretty nice guy, especially because,
Super nice guy.
because you think of Sting, at least the character on television, he doesn't have friends. He's like this lone wolf type of character sitting in the rafters, avenging evil. You don't think of him of having friends, especially ones that are out there doing the things that Darby's doing. Like, you feel like Sting, who's an older man who should be friends with just hanging out with Ric Flair and Ricky Steamboat, but no, he's hanging out with 20-year-old like Darby Allin, falling off of ladders through glass, and he's a daredevil. He's gonna go climb Mount Everest as well. So
Yeah,
it's not like he's just crazy in wrestling.
and he's so casual about it too. Like, when he was talking about, just like, yeah, gonna go to Everest, and my brother and I are just going, how is this? It's almost like it's just normal to him, because he just lives this life of doing all these crazy stunts, and he's just like, what's another thing? And so, yeah, I love that about him. He's just fearless is, I guess, the best word I can use to describe him. Completely fearless.
Yeah, hopefully he doesn't break his back in the next 5 years, and we get a lot more years out of him than
We
just a
need a
couple
lot
of
of Darby. Yeah, a lot more
yes.
Darby in wrestling.
Yeah, like, again, I bring up Mick Foley all the time. Mick Foley, to me, is a Mount Rushmore wrestler to me. He's entertaining, very fun, very great at the mic. Darby Allin made Sting relevant in, 2020 and so on and so forth, and everyone loves Sting, and now Darby's forever connected. A piece of Sting is attached to
Yeah.
him forever. So that's pretty cool. But, with you growing up with Sting as your father, is there a situation that you get put into maybe as a child where someone finds out Sting is your father? And they're like, "Oh, can I go to your house? Like, who's gonna be there? Is it Sting, Macho Man, Kurt Angle, Abyss? Like, who does that happen to you often?"
Yeah, so it's always been kind of a debate in when we should tell our friends, and we never really advertised it very much, because if you say it too early, then people find out, and realistically, they just want to be your friend because of your dad, and they
You're
just anytime it's like, once my dad would come around, they just, there's your dad, and they just forget about me. And so I kind of restricted myself, and really my brother did too. He just never really talked about it. But then eventually the news would come out. Sometimes it would get to the point too where you wait too long, and it's like, why didn't you tell me? I've known you for like 5 years. What?
oh man, that's a long
Or
time.
something like that. And so I've learned over the course of my life, when's the right time? When do I say it? I've had a few friends that just randomly have said, man, I love pro wrestling. That's what I'm into. My favorite wrestler is Sting. And at that point, I'm like, I gotta say something now. Like, well, here's a fun fact. And
It's so funny, be like, "I hate that guy. He's the worst. He gives the worst birthday presents." Oh, what?
yeah, and so it's been good, and I think you really see who your real friends are, with how they're interested in you and what you're doing, and I think that's always been important to me.
Yeah, I imagine it's difficult to find who's your real friend, and who's not your friend, or your girlfriend, or boyfriend, or whoever wants to be your friend, because once they find out your father is this person, this celebrity that is on television every single week in their home, well, probably they're out. They change, because I've talked to people like The Rock's cousins. You know what I mean? Like, you find
Mhm.
out when I talk to Lance and Hawaii, and I'm like, "Oh, hey, what's going on, buddy? What's your relationship like with The Rock?" He's like, "Oh, it's when you find out The Rock's your relative, people go crazy. But like Hulk Hogan's at his birthday party. Do you have that situation as a child or in a teenager where there's your dad, he's your dad, but then next to your dad is like a bunch of wrestlers coming to your birthday party, giving you Power Rangers or Pokemon cards?
Yeah, so not really. I remember one birthday. It was my 5th birthday, and it was really fun. I I remember Marcus Bagwell was there.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
Buff.
he would come over sometimes when I was a kid. I thought he was so cool because he would like walk on his hands and jump into the pool and do like just handstand walks casually. But that's really the only memory I have. And my dad and Marcus are actually just really good friends. And so that was just a good, and I think he lived in the area too. So it was easy for him to come over. But for the most part, growing up, when my dad was at work, like he just kept work at work. And when he came
Okay.
home, he was dad. And so we didn't really have a lot of overlap into that world growing up. It wasn't until I was an adult that I really started to go back and look at a lot of his old footage because he just never talked about it when he was at home. He just wanted to be dad. He was interested in what we were doing. And I always thought that was really cool. But now I'm like, I wish I would have known about a lot of this stuff earlier on. So,
Well, yeah, I imagine, like he's your dad. So
yeah.
when my kids get home from school, I ask them how their day was, and they're like, it was fine. And then I have to like pull their teeth to get information out of them. But my kids never go, Daddy, how was work today? They
Yeah.
don't give a shit about my work. They're that Daddy, play with me, play with my toys, or run around. Like obviously the same situation
That's what
is,
they want. Yeah.
yeah, that's what your dad probably wanted. He didn't want to come home and be like, let me tell you the story about the time I won the world championship this past weekend. You're like, Dad, I have a baseball game this weekend. You help me swing. You're
Yeah.
like, all right, let me get my bat. So
Yep. And that was the cool thing is he loved being dad, to us kids. And there was never a time where he was like, I wish I could talk about this more, at least that he showed us. He was always just so invested in our football and just making sure that we got the training that we needed and that we were working hard and being successful in football. That was like his primary focus with us as kids, just making sure we're set up for success. And I think it's so cool. Not a
yeah,
lot of kids can say that.
yeah, especially ones who have dads for I guess celebrities, because he's your dad. He's not a celebrity to you. You're
Yeah.
aware of what he does, but you skid your knee, he's there to help you and pick you back up. Not, let me tell you about the time I fought the Macho Man. Like he's
Yeah.
not, as you're crying on the ground, bleeding out of your leg. That's amazing though to hear that
Yeah.
your upbringing, your dad is such a great father, because I think every kid wants a great mom and a great dad, and clearly you have one in both. So but what is next for you? What is next for you and your dad? Are you guys gonna go out and start a band? Like what's next?
Well, I think for me, I mean, I kind of just went back to work. It was very weird going back to my regular day job, traveling home Monday, waking up on Tuesday, and I'm back at work. And it's like, this is the craziest weekend ever. What am I doing? It was hard to get out of that mindset.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, I do YouTube stuff. So I did a live stream today, got to meet some new subscribers that are both Sting fans and video game people. So that is the two worlds colliding has been great. So I'm going to be focusing more on that, potentially, branching out into maybe some fitness stuff as well, including that on the channel. So that is really the immediate future for me. As far as my dad, what I've told people, I don't know what he's doing next, but I do know that he has a lot at his house, a lot of landscaping that needs to get done. He is so good at what he does. People think I'm joking about that, but he's like a professional on the tractor, on the backhoe, and
With
he can.
designs and stuff.
Yeah, I mean, he was just like, oh yeah, I have this project I want to do. I want to move all this dirt over here. I'm going to plant trees over here. This is going to be an awesome building. And he's always doing. Every time I go to his house, it's like I'm seeing a new house because he's just doing all this cool stuff there. So that kind of keeps him occupied for sure, in his as more of a hobby. So
Man, yeah, you don't imagine. It's funny because every time you say, Sting or your dad, I think of like he's in a trench coat and the makeup and the
just
bat, and
hanging
he's
out at
out there
home.
just like digging holes to plant trees dressed as the wrestler Sting. Like, should be Wolfpack today or Crow today? And he just does it, and someone drives by like, "The hell's happening over there? This man is dressed as the Crow out there." But
Yep.
man, that's hilarious to hear because your brother did kind of confirm. He kind of joked about it, then confirmed that your father has like a bat cave in a way where he's down there in the cave doing something like Batman. I don't know exactly what, but
Yeah, I
something.
mean, you picture, yeah, the full on Batcave. I mean, really, like the house design. He always has like that. He's changed a little bit, but he has a certain style that he likes, and so it almost feels like that, like the Batcave when you're at the house. And it is always cool to go in there. But yeah, I mean, he definitely has his stuff.
Man, well, one final question though, and this is something I can't believe never happened. Are you aware? Like now, I know if your father's a wrestler, you might know you might know of wrestling a little bit. And obviously, I'm going to ask like a question like you're a 3-year-old. Do you know who the Undertaker is?
I know who the Undertaker is. Yeah.
Okay. Are you shocked that your father, who has mystical powers in a way as a character, did not ever wrestle the Undertaker, who also has mystical powers? Because it seemed like this is just a much logical situation. Has your father ever talked to you about how dumb it is that it's never happened?
Yeah, I know that he has always, that's been one of it's probably the most requested match ever for him. Why have you never wrestled Undertaker? It's just makes sense that the two mysterious characters. And of course I wanted that to happen at some point, and I know he did too. It's a bummer that it never happened, but you know, I think that everything that he did in AEW has just been, I think it's some of his best stuff, if not his best stuff that he
Yes.
was able to do. And some of the matches, I mean, I think a lot of the thing is like, dude, you're 64. What, how are you doing that? And I think it's just been so cool to see. But of course, yeah, Undertaker versus Sting, unfortunately, never happened. It's sad.
So much money on the table. Like we need 2 tables because there's so much money on that table that is just being left there. But either way, Garrett, I gotta appreciate everything you gave to us this past weekend at Revolution. The
Thank you.
memories
Yeah.
that will last a lifetime, and a lot of us, all the little stingers out there who now are grown ass men who enjoy the past, the present, and the future. I cannot wait to see what happens next with you in video games, of course, because I did visit your
You.
YouTube channel and I
Oh,
did
thank
see
you.
people are into it. And AEW's got a video game. The WWE's got a video game.
Yep.
I'm just saying, if wrestling fans are coming flocking to you, might want to give them the things they're looking for. Like, just play an old SmackDown vs. Raw from 2006. Enjoy that shit, and people will be like,
Yes.
"Oh my god, this is awesome!" So, or
Yeah.
just this thing, you do you.
Just
You
yeah, dress as Sting every live stream. I've got the outfits right here. So
shit. Your father's not going to sue you, I hope.
yeah,
So you can just
hopefully
dress
not.
up as him. Well, you hope not.
Yeah, hopefully not.
Well, hopefully, fingers crossed. He could ground you too, though. But Garrett, thank you so much for being here, talking about everything that happened at Revolution, the future for you and your father. I am so excited. Again, thank you to the Borden family. I talked to your brother already. Now I'm talking to
Yep.
you. There's only one more person to talk to. I might have to figure out how to talk to your father someday. But thank you so much for being here. I'll have a wonderful day, and you have a wonderful day as well. See you next time, folks. Bye bye.